We have to have manufacturing in our country, and we have to give people a reason why they want to keep buying from our local cabinet maker, our local supplier.
Labour shortage versus automation investment. Do we solve the skills shortage by training more people or needing fewer of them? Aaron, if you're happy to start, I might throw it over to you.
It's a big question, actually. From my experience, and I look at the customers that don't struggle with staff, tend to have better systems and processes and have good culture in the company. So as an owner of a business, if you've got staff coming up to you and saying, hey, I know someone that is my family member or someone I know that would fit well into your team because I know the culture here is awesome, those are the companies that don't have problems with staff sort of leaving and going somewhere else. So it's a big question. There's training more people. I've been involved in some TAFE conversations of late, and the point there is inviting the right type of student to the industry. And I guess every student that's going out there thinking, oh, what am I going to do with my life? They're bouncing it off their parents, and the parents are going, well, you're going to have bills to pay. So they want to make sure that their child has a way of paying those bills and being able to move out of home. So, they're not looking at, industries. Well, they're going to be looking at industries where there's a lot of money involved and, is that other trades. So, it's, I guess, understanding and how we can make our industry more profitable to make it more attractive for those types of apprentices coming in. So it is a case of upskilling, making it more attractive for getting bums on seats into TAFEs and then getting them into the industry. But it's a big question.
And so Luke's from Maken Kitchens Cabinets up there in Queensland. Luke, anything from the manufacturer's perspective to add on that?
I like what someone said earlier. Find guys with good attitudes, willing to work, willing to fit in with the team, and we can always train them to do the job. But just having that willingness to learn and work with the team is a big plus.
Patrick?
Well, certainly from an employer's point of view, I mean, culture is everything, isn't it? I mean, it helps with staff retention and so forth. But I think we all need to find more efficient ways, and technology and machinery is certainly an important aspect. And what we've set up with Jowat.Online in Australia is we don't have a customer service department. We don't have anyone answering the phone saying, I want to order that. They can contact me if they want that, but we've set them up online. They place the order prints off in Sydney. We've got a couple of warehouse guys. That's manual labour, of course. The order's pulled and the truck turns up and customer gets the goods the next day. So the reality of it is it's very expensive to have staff in Australia, and we all need to cut corners from a technical point of view or technology point of view and efficiency point of view in any way that we possibly can.
Darryl, have you got anything to add?
I think automation certainly is the future in what we do and how we do it. But with automation, we still need people. We still need people to write the programs, people to look after the product, people to make the job how it's meant to be. But with automation, you get the same quality every time, and you get the same amount of productivity every time. Whereas with somebody working on the floor, they might go to the toilet and get on their phone. They might do something wrong. They might do something different. So we still need people in the factories, and we still need good people, but we need them at a different level now. We can have basic people unloading machinery or loading machinery and let the machine do the job. So we still need to have the right mix and the right blend of people throughout the factory. So yes, automation will take away labour and give you a higher quality finish in a lot of cases, but we still need people at the other end to control that.
Thanks, mate. Luke, I'll get you to tackle this one first off, but we'll go through technology as a disruptor. CNC and AI design tools were supposed to level the playing field. Have they, or have they just raised the stakes? Any thoughts?
Oh, that's a good one. We don't use. We still probably use too much manual labour. But from what I've seen today, there's so much AI tools out there that can be implemented, and something that we'll definitely be, moving to down the track. But yeah, definitely, humans have to up their game to keep up with these AI tools. And like you say, they're definitely going to be the way of the future, and I think they'll. Can move more into that, and then the humans are sort of just monitoring the machines and keeping everything in line. But yeah, you can't do it without humans.
Thoughts, Patrick?
Oh, definitely raise the stakes.
Darryl?
Yeah, absolutely. It raises the stakes. We've had a crack at AI, now, and we're learning with AI. We're using AI to do certain jobs, do certain things, and machines eventually will be AI controlled, absolutely no doubt. With CNC machines, obviously the quality and the workflow is absolutely paramount. But when I did my trade, and when a lot of you guys did your trade, it was all hands on. So you still, again, you need the mix. But yeah, it's definitely better.
Aaron, to weigh in?
So it has raised the stakes. It's very much like nested-based manufacturing. When that sort of came in 2000, it took about 10 years for it to become mainstream. But at the end of the day, it's a tool. The early adopters that utilise that technology benefited from it. AI and everything that's bringing about it, all the advancements, is really just another tool, and the people that learn to embrace that type of technology and control it and use it to their benefit will be the ones that profit from it. So it will help the industry. We can't sort of say it's not going to happen. We can see it's happening, and we've been through this so many times before. So the sooner we sort of face reality and start looking at these systems and putting them into our businesses and seeing how we can actually benefit from them, we'll be better off.
I'll add some meat into this next one, but the question is, can Australian-made survive a race to the bottom on price, and should it even try to compete on that axis? And I guess, Luke, being a manufacturer, I guess I'm thinking about things like, where do you actually win against imported products? Or Patrick there at Jowat, just wondering about Australian standards on adhesives and that type of thing. Jobman customization sold as a value add, but every custom job has hidden costs, right? And then for you guys at SEM, is there a scale below which a custom cabinet maker just can't compete anymore? So we'll start this one with Patrick, but can Australian-made survive a race to the bottom on price?
Well, it's pretty scary stuff, I must say. I've been in the game a long time, and I think the threat out of China for ready-made kitchens is real, and it's never been more real. I saw it start with domestic furniture back in the late 90s. The pine furniture market was wiped off the map within probably 2 years, I'd say. Then commercial furniture followed in the same suit. Then we had an influx of flat pack product coming in through IKEA and Bunnings and Masters and all these guys back in 2010, and we saw a real push for that. But I don't think the product was as custom as what it is now. So it sort of died a bit of a slow death. I think the dollar was at $1.14 or something against the US. So and then it went to 70 cents. So it made it quite economical, uneconomical at the time. So. But that has got way better, and I look at all the high-resi stuff that's going on at the moment. Developments, 300 apartments, we're losing that hand over fist. So it concerns me. I'm not saying that we should drop our pants and run around and try and sell product or supply product at very small margins. We just need to find a way to offer a more customised product, and hopefully we can compete with it. But some jobs we're going to have to walk away from because we just can't compete with China from those high volume projects.
No, you're absolutely correct. We're living it every day. You know, for the last 10 years, we've seen the Chinese machinery start to move into companies, and we have to do what you guys have to do when it comes to improving your product. You have to have a reason why people want to buy from you, and you have to have a difference. You can't just give up and drop your price and say, you know, oh, well, they're selling it for that, we have to do that. You have to convince your customer why they should buy the product from you, what you do different, your personal attachment to the customer, what you do in your factory that makes your product a better product, and we have to do the same thing. So this is why we're moving into more software automated machinery, and we're doing more automation and things that at the moment China aren't doing. So to stay, you've always got to stay one step ahead, because if you just give up, they're going to get us and they're going to push us out, and everybody's going to move on to the next level of just bringing in flat packs from China, and we can't allow that. We have to have manufacturing in our country, and we have to give people a reason why they want to keep buying from our local cabinet maker, our local supplier. Our kids need the jobs in the future, and you guys need the jobs. And I think it's a really, really big thing to talk about. We have to fight. We have to always stay one step ahead. And I think Australian people have got the ability to do it and the will to do it. And I think as a group, we all have to work together to keep our industries alive.
Yeah, it's a very topical question at the moment. Been hearing this a lot. I think the part here that a unified industry could get together and start asking the bigger question, and it's a race to the bottom on price, but at what cost? And it's the cost to the suppliers, it's a cost to manufacturers, and unless we start acknowledging where this industry is heading and start collaborating and start agreeing on where we want our industry in Australia to go, we won't start to answer these questions, because, you know, the suppliers won't have work, the cabinet makers won't have work, the the machinery companies, you know, we need those machines to make the cabinets, so we'll all be without a job unless we start to get together and start doing something about it. And I think, you know, it's got to come from the top, but we need the power here to start having those conversations at a government level and say, you know, we need to stop this because we'll all be without a job unless we start answering these questions.
Yeah, and you guys are the guys that come up with the new ideas, and you are the innovators. You guys are coming up with the right designs for our houses that are being built and our products. So you guys have to keep fighting, because if we start seeing, and I'm seeing it, companies bringing flat packs in, it's going to be bad. So keep fighting, keep working, and keep innovating, and that's all you can keep doing.
And Luke, to finish off.
Yeah, we're definitely hearing more and more about it, especially on the big projects. But something China can't beat us on is, you know, customer service, speed, and just how fast we can get jobs out. So, yeah, I definitely think we're in a sort of, I do smaller projects, a lot of DIY, local cabinet makers and builders. So, you know, there's turnaround's not fast enough from China yet. So I think we're still in a unique market where we've still got something we can fight for. And if we can keep customer service up, quality and speed, then we'll be doing all right.
Great answers. Round of applause, everyone, please.